What is going on, everybody? We are live right now on the Painless Flipping Podcast, where we're going to break down how my buddy right here, Lane Peterson, crushed it on a deal and how he was able to use a YouTube video that I made to stop the deal from not happening, right? Or stop the seller from not working with him. Is that kind of what happened, like in a nutshell?
That's exactly what happened. You saved my deal.
Let's go. Yeah, look, we just met on the phone yesterday, right? Like we've never talked before. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, never had. Just kind of seen each other through mutual social
That's right.
media friends and videos and things like that. But no, I don't think we'd ever connected.
Bro, that is honestly crazy. It's such a small world that especially in the investing world where we live in, right? So
Right.
basically, everybody, if you don't know, I have a YouTube channel. I've had it for about a year and a half, and I make content, and especially stuff where like I'll be doing something for a training or I'll do something on my screen, I'll record it, and then I'll just make a video explaining it. So what happened in this scenario is we had a deal where a seller, we had signed everything. We actually even gave them earnest money. I think we didn't give them earnest money, but I think the seller at the time, we had given them a little bit of money to help them out because they were in a really tough situation and we were going to close on the deal. And then they ghosted us. So we're like, hey, we got to file a memorandum of contract to protect our deal. And it ended up, they were trying to sell it to someone else. Anyway, filing a memorandum of contract is important. Affidavit, memorandum, you can call them whatever you want, but protecting your deal is important, especially if you are agreeing to buy the deal and they're getting kind of shady, they're going to go with someone else. I do not recommend filing one unless you are going to buy the house or you have a buyer lined up. Do not just file these just because you want to stop every deal or anyone leaving you, especially if you have no means of buying it. But anyway, you watched this video and you told me the other day what happened. So let's kind of talk about it. Lane, tell everybody what happened.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with you. I don't make it part of my standard business practice, and also it was very good of me to hear your video because I know how to file memorandums in my local market. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. I know how to do that here. It's pretty easy, but on a nationwide level, on a nationwide platform, trying to find the county, find how to record it, the right paperwork, record it properly. I mean, that's a high task.
It is
pretty difficult to find out all that information. And so what I do, I just jumped on YouTube and I typed in file memorandum and boom, Nathan Payne jumped on, watched your video and saved my deal.
Dude, I love to hear it. So go ahead.
I had this deal tied up in Jacksonville, Florida, Duval County. We've been buying quite a few properties there, wholesaling quite a bit. And this one was it was a creative deal. We do a little bit of creative. We don't do a ton of it, but it was a creative deal. This guy leaving his mortgage in place, doing it subject to the payment was, and he had a solar panel on it. So that kind of muddied the water a little bit.
Gets a little funky too. Yeah.
Yeah. But total all in, it was like $1,000, like $1,050 total payment with his $800 mortgage plus the $250 solar panel. And the thing rented for $2,100. I mean, it was a great little cash flow property. Right. And we already had it assigned to one of our buyers. And then the guy kind of is slow to respond to me. We had everything signed, all the contract, even my assignment was already signed.
Wow.
And then he starts kind of ghosting me a little bit. And then I finally get him on the phone and he straight up told me, he's like, nah, I don't want to sell it to you anymore. Yeah. It's like, whoa, buddy, I've got a contract with you. That means I'm obligated to buy this house just as much as you're obligated to sell this house. That's what a contract does. That's the purpose of a contract.
Exactly.
So just going through it with him, he's just like, nope, sorry, I'm not selling. I said, hey, you know what? I am totally fine. If somebody changes their mind or has something come up in their family, I get it. Just let me know. And no, come to find out, he found someone that was going to pay him more. He told me, like, no, my neighbor, he said, paid me more money. And I said, listen, it doesn't work that way, bud. I mean, so his wife got on the phone. And he's just like, hey, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you, but we're not selling it to you. So that's what I'm like. I gotta file my memorandum.
Right. Yeah. And I think in that situation completely makes sense. I've just heard some stories where people will file them just like as a part of their procedure, which I don't think makes sense.
Yeah,
right.
I don't do that.
No, that's a complete waste of time. But yeah, with this video I showed you, and this is something I learned that I thought was amazing, is at deeds.com, such a easy process. They take care of everything. You just have to send the contract, take a picture or PDF scan. Super easy, right?
Yeah. And super cheap. I mean, it was like $35 for the year or something like that.
So cheap. Yeah.
Yeah,
Eh,
and so literally, I filled out my memorandum, I notarized it, I uploaded it at deeds.com. You upload it,
mhm.
they record it for you,
Yep.
and then send you the confirmation and send you the recording number from the county. And I kid you not, a week and a half later, I got a call from another title company that said, "Hey, calling you about this property. You have a cloud on title. What's it
Mhm.
going to take to clear this title up?"
Right.
I said, "Well, I'm in contract to buy the property, so I want to buy it. If not, I mean, to clear up title, it would take $25,000. That's
Wow.
that's what my assignment was."
So instead of them you just fulfilling and just him working with you, they just paid you out to release
No, they
the
didn't
cloud?
end up doing that, but
Okay.
that's what I told them it would take
Okay.
for me to clear title and remove my memorandum.
Okay.
So no, he came back to me and ended up selling me the property that as we were contractually
Obligated. Yeah.
obligated to.
Well, it's interesting because they're if you're in the reverse situation, you're not trying to buy it and you try to back out, they're gonna try and take your earnest money. They're gonna try to get you to buy it. So it's the same thing, right?
That's what, dude. A lot of times these sellers don't understand. I mean, what's the point of a contract?
Yeah.
I am obligated to buy this house, just like you are obligated to sell it. That's why
Right.
we have a contract.
Well, also, like I agree with you all the time with what you said. Like all the time, if a seller is something happens in their family or they don't want to sell now, I say, hey, completely understand. But I'm going to exercise my rights to buy this, so I'm going to cloud title just when you do want to sell or when you are ready to sell, I'll be there, right? And that's exactly what you said. Hey, that's totally fine if you don't want to sell. Something happen. I don't. You, in this situation, you didn't tell me you'd cloud it, right? You just did it.
I just did
Yeah,
it.
you just did it.
I had the conversation with them and told them, I said, "Hey, listen, you signed a contract with me, and so I can come after you for damages." I did tell them that because
Mhm.
you hold equitable title, so
Yeah.
you can go if he goes and does that, but then you got to go through the court. If you
Yeah.
don't file a memorandum, you got to go through the court, and nobody wants to do that.
No, 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 definitely not. No, I think the memorandum's the key. So that's what I say when sellers, I'm like, hey, totally get it. Trying to like come off like I am the nice guy, but I'm just saying, hey, it's totally fine. You don't have to go, but this is what I'm gonna do. So I'll be ready. And then that when you say that, they're usually like, well, actually, then they start, telling you more of the truth of what's going on, right?
Right.
Because nobody
Yeah,
is
exactly.
in my opinion, from what my experience with sellers is like, nobody wants to sell like ASAP or super quick. And then all of a sudden, like a couple days before, they're like, I decided not to sell. It's like, that doesn't really add up. Doesn't really make sense.
Right.
you know?
Yeah, and if you can have a good conversation with them, and if you know what you're talking about, if you understand the contractual agreement, contract law, you can have an educated conversation with
Of
them
course.
and let them know. It's just like, hey, how mad are you going to be if I don't come to the signing table? How mad are you going to be if I don't come to the closing table?
Right.
You are expecting me to do this just as much as I'm expecting you to do it. And if you don't do it, I do have a case that I can come after you because I hold equitable title. When you hold that contract, you hold equitable title of the home.
And you ended up making 25K on assigning it. Is that what you ended up doing?
I ended up assigning that one.
So zero down, but you were able to find an investor to sign it in for
Yep.
25 down. Is that what happened?
Yeah. So he actually came in with the total amount was 50. He came in with 50, paid us our assignment fee, and then gave the
Oh, okay.
25,000 proceeds to the seller.
Oh, wow. So you're able to get the seller 25K.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. He was making some money. But
Good.
it was a great
Amazing.
deal. I mean, the thing cash flowed $1,000 a month, and for
Yeah.
my investor, only 50,000 out of pocket.
Wow. Yeah,
Pretty
that's
good.
amazing. That's amazing. I'm sure it's appreciated since then as well. Um,
Yeah,
since you've done so. I don't know about you, but I have several deals where this has happened. Has this happened to you a lot in your market
it,
or
it
in
it's
general?
happened several times. I
Yeah.
I don't have to do the memorandum that often,
Mhm.
but it's a tool that you just always have to have in your belt because
Right.
it does happen, and it happens quite often.
When I was new, I didn't know this happened that often. So when sellers tried to back out, I thought I couldn't do anything. I was like, okay. So I had this deal once in where was it? No, it wasn't Del Rio. It was in California, right? So I can't remember exactly in California, but the seller the day before we had agreed to 80,000 no $60,000 to buy her house. The day before close, or I think it was the day of, she said, I don't want to sell you guys the house at 60. I want 80 or I'm gonna walk. And we didn't know, we were new investors. So we're like, and we had it assigned at like 120. We
Uh-huh.
were making a big fee. But so
Oh
we were
man,
like,
yeah,
okay. We were like, okay, and we just gave her extra money. So it was interesting because I didn't know. I could have just been like, hey, look, the day before, you can't just say I want more. Everybody's ready to go. But I didn't know that. So we just did
yeah.
that. But
I
you
mean,
you you need to know your
flip
rights.
the, flip the script, right? I mean, ask the seller, hey, would you appreciate it if I came to the closing table and said, hey, I need a $30,000 price reduction the day of close?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it's the same thing. Flip the script, and it doesn't feel good to them, just like it doesn't feel good to us as buyers.
Yeah, and it's interesting because again, when you're new, you don't really know that. I had another experience where I was this is all a lot of this happened when I was new. I went to this guy's house, we signed an agreement for 215. He was good to go. No issues or anything. I as I'm driving away, like 30 minutes later, I get to my office. He calls, he says, "Hey, I've decided not to sell." And for me, just being a trusting person in the beginning, I trusted everybody in the beginning. Now I'm a little reluctant to trust
Yeah,
everybody. But I was like, okay, that's fine. If you don't want to sell, that's fine. A couple weeks later, I found out that it was wholesaled and flipped, and
yeah,
well, not flipped
those
at
are
that
the
time, but
worst.
wholesaled. And I'm like, what?
Yeah,
So those are
those
the
are the
worst.
worst.
Because I was just like, I just was letting anybody out. So eventually I got to understand what this memorandum was. And what a memorandum was, it's just you should have this verbiage in your contract, by the way, if you guys don't, but your contract should say something like, hey, you have the right to file a notice of interest with the seller. If the seller signs this, whatever, you're able to file a notice of interest showing that you have equitable title in the property. I don't know the exact verbiage, but it basically says they are agreeing and you're agreeing that you can do that if by signing the contract. And
Yeah,
now when sellers do it, I had a guy in Florida like a while ago that the day of the day of closing, he says, "Hey, me and my mom, we decided we don't want to sell. We just decided." I said, "Okay, so the day of, just you had all these issues where you need to sell, but today you just decided you don't need to." And he's like, "Yeah, it's okay. Don't worry. Like nothing happened. I'll just give you your $500 of earnest money that you put." And I was like, "Look, we've done all this work. That's totally fine if you decide you don't want to sell, but just know that if you're trying to sell to anyone else or try to sell in the future, I have, the cloud on title now, and we're going to be there ready to buy it. So it's okay if you don't want to sell." And he was like, and then we found out he was trying to sell it to someone else. And we ended up, when he knew I kind of pushed on him, we ended up closing on him the next day. So crazy, man.
yeah.
It's crazy that sellers try to do that, isn't it?
Yeah, like I said, if you know how to have that conversation and you know contract law, you'll be okay. I
Yeah.
had a deal just the other day. It was actually one of my clients, and it was on a land deal, just a raw land deal that we had tied up. He had tied up. I was helping him structure the deal and get it to the closing table. But he had the same situation happen. This was literally last week, and it was a $500,000 piece of dirt, and the seller just had gone dark on him,
Mm.
and not just for like a day or two, but it was like 2 weeks. And then he calls me and he's just like, "Hey man, this is what's going on." I'm like, "Bro, we got to file that memorandum tomorrow." He's like, "Well, let's give him through the holiday, you know." I'm like, "No, if you wait a week or two,
It's
I mean, he
gone.
could sell it to somebody else.
Yeah.
Title can get cleared if you expedite title, it can get cleared in a week, and he could close it and sell it to somebody else. And now you got to take him to court, and who wants to do that?"
Right. No, so
So
true.
we ended up filling out the memorandum, but then the seller called and we didn't end up having to file it.
Okay. Well, that's good. So, what's interesting? I've actually filed some memorandums and they haven't either got recorded in time, or some of the title companies just don't even care and they'll do it anyway. And they'll leave it up to like for you to deal with the buyer or the property. Right. So I don't know if that's
Yeah,
happened to you, but that's happened to me too, where I filed some and the title companies like either they don't see it or they turn a blind eye and they just do it anyway because they're rogues and they don't care. They're just being rebellious.
in that situation, couldn't you go after the title insurance?
So in the situation where I did do that, like this happened, I tried to go for the title company, and they're tough, dude. Like title insurance, all that stuff. Like, good luck getting title money from title companies, in my opinion. I think they got a lot of money, they got a lot of lawyers, and I think they're hard to
Oh,
go after.
they don't want to pay out on those policies, just like your normal
No, no,
insurance. Man. They're
definitely
going
do
to try
not. Yeah.
everything they can to not pay out on that policy.
I've actually
That
haven't heard of many situations where title companies actually pay out on their title insurance when they make a big mistake, because they can make some big mistakes, bro. And I think sometimes they're just like, do something about it.
Dude, I had one that did. I had a guy that wholesaled me a house in Scottsdale here in Arizona.
Mhm.
Wholesaled me a house. He made 30 grand on it,
Okay.
right? So I funded the deal for 230. He had tied it up for 200. My title company, when I closed it, they insured it for his purchase price, so 200 grand, right?
Mm,
And I was kind of new. This was years and years ago.
right. Right.
I didn't even say anything. I didn't even look at that. 2 weeks later, I get a lawsuit delivered to my office because the woman that sold it to him did it fraudulently. She was actually appearing to be the sister. There was a death in the family. Dad left it to the two sisters. Two sisters like didn't get along. One sister fraudulently signed for the other sister. Notary stamped it. Everything.
Mm.
And then so they went back to the title company. The title company's like, all right, yeah, we'll pay you the $200,000 owner's policy. But I'm like, well, I paid 230. They're
Yeah.
like, oh, it's only insured for 200. So I lost 30 grand.
Well, that sucks, but I feel like there's some title companies that are like holding the walls that probably wouldn't even, they'd just disappear or something.
Oh, dude, no, not title company. It was Fidelity.
Oh,
they're one of the biggest in the nation. And so
right.
ever since then, I learned to, whenever I get somebody that I buy a home from, if they're making a $30,000 wholesale fee, I'm insuring it for the entire amount.
Good.
Because I even went back to the guy that sold me the deal because I had a good relationship with him,
Hmm.
and he wouldn't budge. I had to send a letter from a lawyer, and then now I don't have a relationship with him because he wouldn't give me my assignment fee back.
So you're
It was
telling me he
awful.
made 30K on something that you lost 200, you lost out on? Like he just wouldn't give you the money back?
No, and literally he had made it like 2.5 weeks before. He made 30 grand on an assignment, and all I said was, "Hey, dude, they took the house back. Give me my assignment back." And he was like, "No."
Wow, that's whack in my opinion. Like if that happened, oh my gosh, bro. I'm sorry to hear
Yeah,
that.
it wasn't pretty, but you live and learn, and I always insure my properties for the entire amount.
Well, you do live and learn, and it's kind of crazy how like you would never probably even known that until because that happened to you. Like that's not something I've ever thought of, bro. Now that you've told me that, I've learned from you. So
Most people don't even look at that, right? You figure
yeah,
that the title company would just insure it for the entire amount, but most of them are insuring it for the contract amount.
yeah.
So
Shoot.
you go tie up a property for 500 grand, wholesale it to me for 550. A lot of times the title company is just insuring it for that contract amount.
That's a good point. So everybody that's watching this or will watch this, definitely check if you're buying a property, make sure and you do title insurance on it. That and I do recommend that you do that it's insured for the amount that you're buying it for. Is that right, Lane?
For sure.
Well, hey man, this it's crazy again that this happens, but this is definitely a good strategy, or not even a good strategy, but something to do when this happens because it's going to happen. It's bound to happen, especially like if you're doing pay per click, mail, text, whatever. Like they're not just dealing with you. I would say most of the time. Most of the time, even if after you get under contract, they're gonna sometimes have someone chirping in their ear, and if you start feeling something getting fishy, you just want to call it out, be like, hey, everything good, and
Yeah.
yeah, you just
Yeah,
you want to be
It
alert.
happened. It's happened to me multiple times. I still have a lot of, I don't even know how many, but memorandums filed out there that I haven't heard anything about. Maybe they did sell it and I didn't know. But after you said that, maybe I got to go back and check, but
I
I
think
haven't
so
heard
sometimes,
anything.
bro.
I buy a lot of houses in Atlanta, and when we were buying a lot a couple of years ago, it would just happen. Someone would call me and be like, "Hey, man, I'm not selling," and give me some reason, and I'd be like, "Hey, I get it." If they gave me some family reason, but I'd still go file the memorandum because, like you said,
Hmm.
all sellers are liars. I mean, you don't know if they're telling you the truth and they're really just turning
You
it
don't,
around and selling it to another guy for 20 grand more.
bro. You don't know. No. So
If one comes back around a couple years later and I do realize that, hey, he was telling me the truth, I'll probably just release it.
yeah, yeah, or rework it, right? Or be like, yeah, no, it's been a while, but let's see what we can do.
Yeah. Oh, you're selling it? What are you selling it for? Maybe I want to buy it.
Right. Yeah. So the one that was really funky for me was I was talking to this guy in Atlanta. He owned a property in I think it was Huntsville, Alabama. He sold it to me for like 170. we had everything ready to get it assigned, and we had open up title, put down the earnest money there, and then like when we went to go close it, it was already sold. So somehow like he sold it out from under us. So then we filed, I think we like reached out to the seller like, hey, actually this wasn't a memorandum situation because he sold it once we had everything assigned. So there's not really much you can do in that situation. Like if everything is going according to plan and then all of a sudden you're ready to close and he snaked and someone else took action first, that kind of sucks. But I don't think that happens that much, but that happened in my situation.
Well, dude, and one thing to always remember is when you get your contract signed, make sure it is dated and time stamped, right?
Okay.
Because I've run into the situation where they signed a contract with another buyer the same day.
Oh,
and then they try and ghost me. And so then you go file that memorandum, and then it comes down to the title company. The title company's like, hey, you guys got to figure it out. And so when you compare contracts, you're like, hey, I got mine signed at 10 a.m. You didn't get yours signed until 5 p.m. So my contract's the one that's valid.
So
it's very important.
And just so this is how PandaDoc, I think DocuSign works as well. But if you dive into the like the details of the remote signature, electronic signature, it does show you the time. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So exactly. And unfortunately, with the deal we had was like a $20,000 assignment fee. Like there was really not much we could do because he had already sold it. And then we had talked to the buyer, and the buyer's like, well, hey, look, like I didn't even know about you guys. And then the seller like was an old guy and was like, there's only so much you can do. What are you going to do? Like take it to court, So
yeah. I had a situation where it literally came down to closing and they had two contracts. And it just so happened I knew the other guy. It was here in Phoenix, and I know a lot of the guys that are buying here.
Right.
And it was a guy that I knew. And so my title company was like, well, hey, they filed their memorandum, and I saw that they filed their contract with their memorandum. And so I saw what time they signed it at.
That's amazing.
And I'm like, I had mine signed first. So I call the guy and I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. And, can you just tell title to clear it up? And he's like, well, how much are you going to give me? I'm like, I'm not going to give you anything. I had my contract signed first. Title is going to insure over you. It's just going to take them a day or two longer because it's going to take more work. Can you just call and release it so that I can get it closed? Anyways.
Savage,
so you got to know. I mean, the guy, he didn't have a leg to stand on, and title.
No, he didn't. Not at all.
Over it, but he's just, trying to get a handout.
It's like, what are you going to give me? Absolutely nothing. It obviously,
I'm just asking you as as an associate, the right thing to do is release your memorandum because it's not legit.
It's cutthroat in Phoenix, brother.
No, like you wouldn't believe, man.
We got some questions coming from the live. So this is, what can you do after they sell the property and the memorandum wasn't called? So that's kind of the situation I was talking about with you guys. Like there's really, you can obviously escalate it, but like how much time and effort do you want to put into something like this that could basically be a time suck, in my opinion? For me, my thought process is protect the deal. Unless it's like some crazy deal where you spent all this time, energy, and effort for years and months, then obviously I'd pursue it. But if it's something like a wholesale deal or something where you're going to make, let's just say 10 or 20, is that really worth it for you to pursue? And kind of, it does suck your energy, bro. Because I was talking on one of the deals, I was talking to an attorney, I was sending in information, and I was like, man, this isn't even worth it. So
your only leg to stand on is go after the title company and see if they'll pay out of that insurance policy that they got.
Yeah.
And I would make a little bit of effort there. And if you're going to have to lawyer up and go sue the title company to get them to pay out of that insurance policy, it's probably not worth it.
Yeah. Agreed.
But at least, maybe send a demanding email, be like, hey, you guys insured over this, you owe me. Then move on.
I love it. Yeah, we're in agreement there. Let's see if this is, I think this might be the same thing. What is the biggest windfall you have made after filing memorandum, and how long after was the property sold? Do you know what that means? Windfall? I'm not sure what that means. Pitfall, windfall? Do you know what that means?
I'm not sure what they mean by that, but
yeah, not sure.
Most of mine, if I file a memorandum, they come to fruition pretty soon after. Because that means they were trying to sell it to somebody else. Like I said, I have some memorandums out there that have been on there for years. And if they do call me, I'll probably just end up releasing it because it was a family issue that they ended up, so it will stay there forever until they go and sell it should stay there forever unless the title company misses it.
Yeah. And I think I think with some of the ones that we had where they sold over it, I think there's some smaller title companies that just want to get deals done. They don't even care. And they're like, go ahead, do something. So
Yeah.
I think it depends. But when you're dealing with the bigger ones, like you said, Fidelity, I don't think they're trying to play around. Let's see. How do I find out which title company they used? So I don't think it's necessary. Well, that's actually a really good question. How would you find out which title company they closed at?
You don't need to find out. You can file your memorandum with any title company
Well,
after
I guess
that.
what they're referring to is if we try to go after the title company and do a demanding letter
Oh,
for the title insurance, how would you know? That's a good question.
that is a good
I'm trying to
question.
think of what happened to the one that I did. Well, usually I find out because the title company calls me or lets me know. So if they don't, you got me stumped there.
That's a good question because you can look up the recorded deed, but I don't think the deed says anything on the title about the title company unless it's like
I don't think so.
their notary. But it's still that's a good question. I'm not sure because that's not a recorded document on the title company that did it. Now you can get another title company to go and find out who insured it. You can find out who insured it.
Okay.
Just use whatever title company you use, and they can go and look up who insured that property because they can find the policy.
So maybe that's it.
Right.
You look at who insured the sale of the home, right?
Yeah, because then you're filing a claim technically against the new owner. It's not against them personally, but it's against their property. And so whatever title insurance they bought is protecting them, right? So if somebody has a claim against their policy, so any title company that you have a relationship can find out who has the policy on that house and file a claim against that policy.
Love it. No, man, thanks for answering a lot of these questions. I think we're getting some good interactions. Can you file memorandum with the county directly instead of filing it through a title company? Of course, yeah. You can do it on deeds.com. And that's how we originally met, Dallin, is I made a video on YouTube called How to File a Memorandum of Contract, and he was able to use it to save that deal that he had in Jacksonville. So you could check that one out. But you can do it directly to the county. You can do it online or through the title company. They all pretty much will help you get it done.
So something to note though, Dallin, a lot of title companies won't do it. So that's why deeds.com is so awesome because whatever the county is and wherever the United States, they'll do it for you. And a lot of times when you go to a title company, they say, hey, I can't do it unless I'm issuing a title insurance policy because they're recording something that they're not insuring. So deeds.com is a great way around that. I have found that a lot of title companies won't do it.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Cool. Any other questions? Anybody on that's watching this on live? These are great questions to ask because it seems like this is something that a lot of investors face or they're worried about, right? So again, just to reiterate, we're not saying this should be a part of your process to do on every deal. I would say it's on ones where it's starting to get a little fishy. You're ready, it's assigned, or you're going to buy it and they start ghosting you, or they try to just back out the day of. Just have that conversation. Just say, hey, look, that's okay if you don't want to sell it right now if something happens, but we will be ready to buy it when you do sell. So if you're selling to someone in a week, for example, we're going to come up and it's not going to work out. Oh yeah. When I go talk to sellers and I go through my contract, I actually read not word for word the contract with my sellers that I work with, but I just kind of go over and explain. And I say this as part of my process. I just say, hey, by the way, by signing this just enables us to, protect ourselves. If we agree and we go through this process and you try to back out, we're able to file a notice of interest. And nobody ever, when you're reading that, like has anything bad or negative to say about it. They're like, okay, I totally get that. So this is not something that's weird for someone that you're agreeing to buy their house. They're actually glad that you're willing to do this. But then obviously later down the line, it will bite them in the butt if they try to get sneaky.
Yeah, at the time of signing, they're like, oh no, I'd never do that.
Yeah, for real. Well, Lane, do you have anything you would like to add for our guests? We've had a good conversation. Anything you want to let them know before we wrap up, or how they can find you and work with you, since you're doing deals?
Yeah, I call myself HOV Lane. My name is spelled LAYNE, but that's all my social media because I love sharing. I love carpooling. We're all in this, it's so great to work together, collaborate, share best business practices. And like you said, Nathan, this isn't like a standard practice. Every time I get a contract, oh, we got to go file a memorandum, right? But if you sense if something's getting a little squirrely, something's not right, just go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Maybe they did have a death in the family and they do need to back out. And that is, at any given time, I say, hey, I get it. And so, but a lot of times they're lying. Majority
Yeah.
of sellers are liars.
Yeah, and that's great having this in the tool belt and knowing that you can protect yourself because there'd be nothing. It's not fun to work all that time and work hard, and then someone just snake it because they've seen your mailer, they saw your blast, and then they just go in and make a little higher offer. Which unfortunately people
Yeah,
do that, and that's
they do. There's people that that have a business practice of taking people's earnest money or snaking deals from other people. It always amazes me because those kind of people, if they would just focus on doing what's right and good, they would kill it. They would
yeah.
kill it.
Yeah. It takes a lot of work. I'm assuming it takes
It's
a
so
lot of
much
work.
work.
Too much
It's so
work to
much
do that.
work.
All right, everybody. Well, this has been the Painless Living podcast. And it's been fun having you on here, Lane. We'll definitely have to have you back and talk a little bit more about what you're doing in the industry and see how people
Love
can
it.
connect with you. But thanks. And
Love it.
last thing I wanted to say is it's kind of crazy because we both know Jerry Norton. Sometimes Jerry, through his videos, people are like, oh, I did this. Now that, you told me, I had no idea. I've never had anyone say, hey, because of your video that you had, I was able to do this. No one said that. So this is
Yeah,
a pretty cool experience for me.
I love being the only one.
So far, right?
Everybody says it about Jerry. Let's get Nathan a win.
Yeah, man. Jerry, I watched your video and did this, and I'm like, man, one day.
Right. Yeah.
All right,
Gotta love him
everybody.
though. Jerry's great.
Yep. All right, everybody. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.